Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. It's Championship Sunday at Major 4. Scrappy does not seem so convinced this has been the most representative tournament of what we might well see at the World Championship, and nonetheless the seedings are not far away from getting officially locked in. Lots of discussion today on which teams may benefit, which teams may be hurt by the way these seedings are looking. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Who's going to win the tournament today? Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, just to quickly mention on the XDefiant side, because there has been some talk, is there going to be an XDefiant league? What's it going to look like? What's the situation going to be? We are seeing some teams now, sign basically rosters, competitive creator rosters, as Omit have done. There's been talk about, other former pros, even former world champions, the likes of Priestahh, at least considering the move over there. But let's talk about what happened in the CDL yesterday, because New York Subliners, they've improved over the course of the weekend, right, since day one, where they got slapped around by Atlanta FaZe. Kismet as well has started to play much, much better this tournament, and I think that is the key. To me, Kismet is absolutely the catalyst to success on this team and is probably the X factor in many ways. Simp has just generally been pretty good over the last couple of months. HyDra is always good. Skyz has been maybe somewhat more underwhelming this season than he has been usually, but Kismet has turned it around over the last couple of days, and that is a crucial factor if these guys want to go all the way, which they could, because let's be honest, we've had 3 events so far this season. We have had 3 different winners. OpTic can't win this one. FaZe can win the second of the season. Toronto can win the second of the season. Los Angeles Gunless can win their first of the season, but also so can the New York Subliners, right? So that is something they'll be looking to try and achieve, and even if they win the tournament, I'm pretty sure they still can't get 3rd seed in the championship, but we'll see how that plays out in a second. To be honest though, they pretty comfortably took down the Los Angeles Thieves last night. The team, of course, that lost to the Los Angeles Gunless earlier in the day. New York come through, they dominate the game 1. Game 2, there were some interesting moments like this. Thieves actually ended up winning this map, but I will say that for Thieves, they were, kind of gutted about losing the round in this way. They've got Skyz one-shot, he runs behind the tank, and then they just double chal like this. Not the best double chal I've ever seen. They just lied up for accuracy, for Skyz, sorry, and he gets a relatively free 1 versus 2. This was just bad though, right? Like, here we are in the control. It's obviously Thieves on the defense, and it's a classic case, isn't it, right? You go to the round 5 control, all of a sudden it's the offensive team that actually pulls out the dub. To be honest though, Thieves were not even close to winning on their attacks. They just, they have a protocol, they try and execute the protocol, often it doesn't really work, and anyway, 14 lives to 8 in this moment. Crimp is probably not set up best to defend this push, but this was just bad. The fact that number 6 on the minimap, so Sib, he manages to sneak through a gap, kills Joe Deceives, gets onto the B or the A point, and then basically it's chalked from there because Thieves have to split their defense. This was a pretty bad way to throw away a game, and Sib's in a perfect spot to capitalize and close out the rounds. So yeah, as soon as that point, you kind of knew the series was over at this point, and that's basically what happens. HyDra then absolutely crushes them on the Vista hardpoint, and it's GG. Subliners go through. Thieves go out, and we predicted on the Dope Check show that Thieves might get top 4 this event. So they haven't. They've got top 6, and it's not the end of the world, but it's still not ideal for the Los Angeles Thieves, at least going into the World Championship, right? Because I think for them, whenever they play, apart from that reverse sweep against the Subliners, which they pulled off online last week, they hadn't lost, or they hadn't won, sorry, a single series all year against a top 4 team, and that remains true in a LAN environment, and that is the problem for Thieves. You're going to go to the World Championship with maybe no confidence, or at least no faith from the fan perspective that you're actually going to be able to win a big series against a top team. It just seems like Thieves in those moments just don't have the ice, or just don't have the firepower. Like, they just played some pretty bad COD today, and the respawns were really ugly, and that's why the numbers of the series are really ugly as well. HyDra with the 1.38, but as I say, Kiz playing better, 88 kills, 17,000 damage, most, by far over the entirety of the Thieves team. That will be enough if that duo can replicate that, which of course is a massive point of question. Let's talk Toronto real quick, because Scrappy certainly given his thoughts on the event over the last day or so. Toronto, by the way, have secured their 33rd win of the season. Their Cold War team had 32, so that was their record, and this season they're 34-9. Ultra were 32-20 that year, so I guess, there's more qualifiers, but there's less tournaments, so it is what it is. I think the numbers over the entirety of the CDL, you can't really compare them too much much because the formats have been somewhat different, but it's at least worth thinking about the fact that Toronto actually have been really competitive this season, despite the fact that Envoy, you know, he's had his ups and downs, right? As he says, great day from the boys, looking forward to Sunday. They got the victories they required. This was interesting though from Scrappy in terms of, you know, exactly what he meant by this final part. GG's Mabby and Surge survived a Saturday grueler. Can't lie, this event is comedy. So look, does he, because he's been talking all sorts of trash, the way the venue is set up, standing on there, kind of on the main stage, but he can stand up, he can talk trash, he can put his headset down up 5-1, not realizing the game's not over yet, as he did yesterday up against the Seattle Surge, and then he was, you know, talking trash in Spanish to the Miami boys, talking trash in French to the Surge boys. Maybe that's what he's getting at, but also there's maybe a feeling that it might not be the most representative event, right? The way that it's set up, no fans, just the setup in general is going to be different to the World Championship. We are seeing some more unexpected results, right? I mean, OpTic losing maybe even wasn't that unexpected given their performance online, but the fact that Gorillas are here, top 3 in the winners finals, like some of the results we have seen have been maybe what you wouldn't have expected in a LAN environment with a crowd, so it's kind of like a half LAN, and maybe that's kind of what Scrappy's getting at, or he's just having a great time with the actual venue setup, being able to talk all sorts of trash. But then again, for Scrappy, they'd love to win today to make the run through losers from losers round 1 after losing to Gorillas all the way to the championship. What really matters for Scrappy and these guys is actually winning the World Championship, which of course they fell short of last year. There was a bit of trash talk as well I thought was pretty funny, because Parasite was mentioning Los Angeles Gorillas, the run they've had, the teamwork they show, the coaching staff, how aligned they've been on various topics. Slasher, of course, I mentioned the opposite of this in many ways, right? Like Gorillas, with very limited budgets, have achieved significantly more now this season than Boston Breach have, by an absolutely country mile, despite the fact that Boston have, at least this season, far more resources, far more talented players on paper. It's just the execution, the strategy behind the execution was rather different, and that's what Slasher says. Wow, I'm shocked that teamwork is important. I thought you just get cracked. So, you know, Slasher won't stop going on about the situation in Boston, because that at least is being kind of subtweeted here, that he's like, yeah, well, Snoopy, whatever, pretty cracked out player. Guess that's the key, but clearly it ain't the key. And Slasher knows that from his past, but then again, you know, he was on this team and he made it back, so guess it wasn't the end of the world for him. But let's talk about what this means for the World Championship, because this is the current situation in terms of standings. Vegas are gone, Ravens are gone, Rocker are gone, Boston Breach are gone. These will be your 8 teams at the World Championship this season. FaZe are at 545, they are going to be your #1 seed, unless possibly FaZe come top 3 today and Toronto win, then maybe it changes around. I think that is actually possible as well, but more than likely FaZe will be the #1 seed, Toronto will be the #2 seed. If FaZe make finals, they guarantee themselves the #1 seed. OpTic are 3rd, that's guaranteed, that's a locked-in 3rd seeding, and it's interesting though that OpTic, despite having a very similar record to sometime to Toronto, you know, they've now dropped back to 29-16, same as the Subliners, really, 27-16 for them. They're going to be the 4th seed, obviously. The rest of it, though, is pretty interesting. So Miami are gone, they're at 185. They are going to be the 8th seed for the World Championship. Thieves are gone, they're at 195. They're going to be the 7th seed for the World Championship. The question is, what happens between Surge and Gorillas? Because they're currently tied on 200 points. Surge are gone, Gorillas are still in, but the head-to-head goes the way of Seattle. So right now, it's Surge as the 5th seed and Los Angeles Gorillas as the 6th seed, but depending on the results of today, we could see something a little bit different. But yes, as it stands, FaZe will play Miami round 1 of the World Championship. Ultra will play Thieves. So, you know, some theoretical benefits in playing the top couple of teams. Then again, like Miami, they're a pretty good team right now. Like, I'm not sure FaZe will be concerned about playing Miami round 1 of the World Championship. I don't think they will be. But nonetheless, there's potentially easier games of the 4, maybe. Like, OpTic play Gorillas, which I would have told you, if you'd have told me magically that Gorillas were to make the World Championship before the tournament, I'd have said, yeah, sure, like, OpTic should take Gorillas. But as it now looks, is that actually a good game or not? So maybe, you know, FaZe I don't think will care. Toronto I think will maybe be the happiest in the sense that, you know, Thieves round 1, I think they'll be really confident they'll win that one. I know that FaZe will be confident they'll beat Miami as well, but, you know, Miami do have a little bit more firepower than maybe we have seen earlier in the season, and then Thieves, as I've just said, are a team that just can't seem to really beat an actual top contender. So if I'm Toronto, I'm pretty happy if I end up the 2nd seed after this one. If I'm New York, obviously I'm 4th seed, get what I'm given, Surge isn't bad, but it's this OpTic Gorillas possibility which is kind of fascinating. It's of course not locked in yet. Depending on what happens today, if Gorillas can, you know, go one step further somehow, then, and maybe it's even possible, as we'll discuss over the coming minutes, then they would obviously change it around and OpTic might play Seattle Surge, Surge, which would be a pretty big deal as well because, you know, there's the whole Pred versus Surge thing, there's the Dashy versus Rambo thing, there's a good few storylines in the OpTic versus Surge story, and of course it was last year that Surge knocked them out of the World Championship, but yeah, this is as it stands. FaZe versus Heretics, but I don't know why we've got two different Ultra graphics, but whatever. These guys, the other one versus Los Angeles Thieves, as I say, it's probably going to be FaZe, it's probably going to be Ultra, and this is probably going to be Gorillas, and that's probably going to be Surge, but yeah, we'll see after today whether that actually comes true or not, and who does this help, who does this hurt? Interested to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. But let's talk about how the bracket's shaping up and what we can expect to be happening today, because Atlanta FaZe, they're obviously going to be the favourites at this point. They were the favourites coming in, as they always are, but of course they weren't the #1 seeds coming in. That was in favour of Toronto Ultra. Toronto, though, have made a mega losers bracket run. 3-0, 3-1, 3-2. Interesting just pattern, isn't it, right? They 3-0'd Ravens, 3-1 Heretics, 3-2'd Seattle Surge. So does that now mean a 3-2 loss or whatever to the New York Subliners? I think Ultra should be favoured there. I think New York in general, I mean, the way that New York got destroyed by FaZe, bit concerning. FaZe haven't even dropped a map so far this tournament though, which is also concerning for the opposition. Subliners can definitely win this one. I do think that for New York, right, their respawn has been really good, but their search and destroy has been lacking, and I think Ultra's search, they've proven it's actually been really solid this tournament. So, you know, I think the safe prediction, Ultra versus New York, is probably Ultra in 5, but I think honestly anything can happen here when you've got these top 4 teams matching up, and, you know, similar thing happens back at Major 2, right, when we had, I think, the same game and losers semi-finals, and I think it was New York that went through and Ultra went home on that occasion. So yeah, I think Toronto will probably get the dub here. The question, I guess, is like, how good actually are Gorillas? Can they do some damage for the rest of the tournament, right? Because they 3-1'd Ultra earlier on. Now Ultra obviously weren't expecting Gorillas to be as good as that, but then they 3-0'd Thieves. So you know, can they do damage against FaZe? I don't really think they can, just because FaZe will be prepared for this, and Gorillas in the back of their mind are probably thinking, okay, it's FaZe, what can you do? But that is the point that I also wanted to mention, as Simp says, you know, Championship Sunday, play winners finals tomorrow. We've seen this trend several times this season and in previous seasons, where FaZe will turn up to Sunday looking indomitable, and then for whatever reason on the Sunday, they just don't get to the same level. They're always going to be a contender, always going to be incredibly difficult to beat, but, you know, there is a world today where FaZe turn up, they probably make finals, but potentially they lose in the finals. I just personally think that with no crowd, with a bit of a different setup, that ain't gonna happen. Like, I think the best team, which I think is FaZe right now, will probably shine through, and yeah, so I'm gonna take FaZe. Look, I had them winning the tournament before it began, so I have to kind of stick with it, I think, at this point. I think I've got Ultra making the losers bracket run to continue onwards, and I guess if I'm taking FaZe to win this and the finals, I then have to weigh up whether Gorillas can actually win another big series, because, like, they clearly have more firepower than they probably get credit for, Gorillas. Their teamwork, we know, is very solid. Just the question has been, is it going to be enough? I mean, this is remarkable to think that this is your 4 teams that made the Championship Sunday. I knew there was going to be some team that made it, or even 2 teams that made it, that was somewhat unexpected, but for it to be Gorillas was, like, massively unexpected, given the way the rest of the tournament played through. My feeling is that Gorillas today are going to put up more of a fight than many people might expect them to, but realistically, I think I still have Gorillas going down here. I have Toronto probably bouncing back and beating Gorillas in the elimination finals, and then I think I've got FaZe in the grand finals in a best of 7. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.